Hello. In this presentation, I'd like to talk about flowcharting and how to create them using Dia. So we're going to be implementing this particular flowchart, and also there's a reference for our pseudocode. Okay, so Dia is a diagram editor that you can download free of charge from. I would go to SourceForge for the install file. If you just want to run it directly from your thumb drive, you don't want to install it on a particular system, you can just Google Dia portable. Let's get started. So this is what the interface looks like. So when you look at the different kind of templates, you can see it has an extensive list of templates what you can use in your different kinds of designs, like network administration, electrical engineering, mechanical engineering. For our purpose, we're just going to need a flowchart. Now, if you are taking a course that is an object-oriented programming language, you might need this UML. But for our purpose, we're just using a procedural programming, so flowchart gonna be just fine. So let's get started. We need the terminal interrupt. So every single code, every function, every method needs to have a clear starting and ending point. So we're going to have the terminal interrupt shape used as a start and a stop point. Okay. So when you select a tool and then you just drop it on the workspace, you can just select it and press on delete to get rid of it, to delete the object or the shape from the workspace. Okay. Now, if you make spelling mistakes or you need to change or edit the text within the shapes, you can click on the text editor and then click on the shape itself, and then you're gonna see the insertion pointer is going to be enabled, so you can add or remove text from the shape. As you are typing, the shapes gets wider, and you can see that after I remove the text, the shape did not shrink back to the minimum size. So you can just select the shape and drag one of the handlers, one of the green squares, and resize the shape. Okay. You can always click on the shapes and just move them around as you need them. So the default pointer is the arrow that actually moves the shapes around. So make sure that you have a clear understanding what kind of a program you want to design. You can start with a pseudocode and then turn it into a flowchart. But designing the program is the first process that you have to do after understanding and analyzing the problem. So if we are catching the dog is just a process, so that's a rectangle. When we are making a logical decision, that would be a diamond shape. So most of the time you would use either an if keyword or a while keyword. Just like in the pseudocode, we use those keywords. And then X, or comparing some variable to a value. Okay? But you would have to use some kind of a keyword like while or if you're using this diamond shape. This is where we make logical decisions. So here we're just going to say, does the dog run away? So that is our question. That's what we want to find out. Now you can see that the diamond shape does not come with labels. So in order to find out, or in order to determine the flow of the program, we need to add labels, so we can see which way the diamond shape will branch our program, the true and false or yes or no directions. But it's really easy to add. So now you can see on the bottom left hand corner of your screen, you can see how you can change the typical the arrowheads. You can create two-way arrows. You can change the line width, how wide the line is going to be when you're drawing them. You can change the color. Okay. But right now I just selected a single arrow, and then you make sure that you have the handlers on the shapes, and get the handlers closer and close to the shapes on the arrow until the end of the arrow turns red. As soon as it's red, that means it's connected to something. Okay. So many times you just use the straight arrow. Sometimes you use the zigzag. I don't usually use the bow arrow, that curved line. Okay, we usually try to keep it as straight as possible. Okay, so what happens if the dog runs away? If it does run away, then we need to catch it. Okay, so that shows the arrow again, and then you can see that the arrow, the zigzag line, doesn't break the right way. Okay, now if you want to, you can add more handlers to any one of the lines, and sometimes you can remove them. So you can see this way it actually breaks the proper way, the way that I wanted to break the line, the zigzag arrow. So now it looks better. You can rearrange the labels, okay, and align all the shapes. Now what if the dog does not run away? Then we can turn on the water, because we already have the dog. So go ahead and turn on the water. Okay, we're gonna connect that with an arrow as well. And since the water is running, now we're gonna have the same step, and that's where you're gonna see the value of drawing your flowchart in software, because you can hold down the shift key and select all the objects that's repeating in this particular case, and you can see that shift and selecting all the objects, Control C to copy it and Control V to paste it, and now you don't have to redraw every single one of those shapes again when you have the same steps. So that made it much quicker. Now in this case the question is the same, but the flow of the execution is different. So you have to realize some of the patterns. In this case, the question was the same and the labels are the same, so I just made a copy of it and then deleted what I did not need and just adding the new shapes to it. Okay, so again, I don't have to redraw the flow of the program when the dog, or when we asking the question if the dog runs away, because we can just copy and paste all that. Okay, and then we're connecting. Make sure the dots turn red. Red means it's connected to something. Green means it's still available. Okay. Select the straight line, connect to diamond shape, connect to the rectangle. The rectangle is a process. Okay, now we can use the zigzag, because now we need to loop back around. Okay, we add another segment and we just drag that segment over, and now it looks nice. So you might have to experiment with that a little bit, how to add and remove segments, and what does adding and removing segments do to the line. That might be a little bit time consuming, but at the end you're gonna enjoy it. You're gonna see the value of it. It makes this application very flexible and very easy to use, but it does need some time to practice it. Okay, so if the dog does not run away, then we can start the shampooing. And now we're going to ask the same question again. Now, in this case, with this particular question, the question will be exactly the same, just like before. So now, again, hold down the Shift key, click on every single one of the objects, every single one of the shapes within your flow of execution, and press Ctrl C to copy it, then Ctrl V to paste it, and you can see that everything is right there for you. It makes your job much easier than if you would have drawn it by hand. Now sometimes you might forget to click on something, and you can just reconnect. So in this case I forgot 2 lines, so those 2 lines did not copy and paste it. It's going to be much simpler to add those 2 lines instead of redrawing all the shapes. Okay, so now we are ready to rinse the dog, and at that point we are done with the dog washing. Okay, I bring down the stop terminal just so we can see the main line of execution of the program. So in this case you can see that the main line of execution is just straight down from start to stop, and it makes it much nicer, and it's much easier to see that the start starts before any other shapes, and then the stop is outside of any other shape as well. Now you can remove the page boundaries. You can remove the grid layout. You can remove the connecting points if you like to look at your flowchart this way. There's a lot of settings that you can have, but I like to fit a flowchart into a 1-by-1 page. It's just most of the time it's easier to print it out. Okay, so if you put the page break back on, now you can see that it actually squeezes it onto one page. But you can trust the software that it's in one page, so if you don't want to see those boundaries, then you can remove them. At this point you are ready to save. When you save a drawing, it's always going to have the .dia file extension, so make sure you don't remove that. Okay, rename your file, leave the .dia, and save the image. Now you can submit that, or what you can do is you can export the diagram, so that when you are exporting, then you can select different file extensions. Okay, so in this case I selected PNG, and what I kind of prefer is PDF. Okay, sometimes PDF is just scaling much better. So when you look at a PDF file and then you zoom in, you can see that you have a much better resolution than if you have this particular PNG. See, it's really hard to read what this design is. So PNG might not be the choice. Experiment with different file extensions, look at them, zoom in, and then make a decision which file extension you feel more comfortable with. Now let's look at a more realistic program design. Okay, in this case we're going to double a number. Again, we start with the starting and stopping point of our application. And then we have a process. In this case is declaration for variables. Now, declaration of variables most of the time is not required. A lot of people would not do the declarations, but in this case, why not? So what you put into the flowchart is not as important than you think about your communication. Who is going to read this? How much detail would make this person understand what you want the final application to do? So now we are processing an input. Input would be a parallelogram. So input output is parallelograms. And now we have a diamond shape. So here we just have a simple question. Are we at the end of the file? So here again, you might use a while keyword. So I would be using something like while not end of the file, then do something. If it's at the end of the file, then maybe quit because you processed the whole file. Again, don't forget the labels. Okay. Remember, create the application and put in the application what you feel comfortable with, but at the same time also think about the standard, what you learned in this chapter so far. Okay, so make sure you have labels, you have some keywords like input, declare. When you do the design, you're really just looking at numbers and strings, so we don't really put in anything about integers and integral data types or floating point values. We just have numbers and strings. See, sometimes I like to connect the straight side of the arrow to the middle of the shape. I think sometimes it's just nicer, it lines up nicer instead of to the edge of the shape. Okay, again, experiment with all those different handlers in every single shape, which one makes it look nicer and more professional. Again, we have an assignment. Assignment is just a process, so that's going to be a rectangle. And then we are going to have an output. You know, you can draw the shapes first and then the lines, or you can do it top-down fashion. One shape, one line, one shape, one line. It's up to you. This is where practice comes in. Develop your own style. And now we also have an input. So we only have parallelogram to show input and output. It's very important to put in either the input or the output keyword when we are using the parallelograms. Otherwise, it's not going to make sense if you mean input or output. Again, you can see sometimes the arrows kind of behave strangely, okay? But every time it doesn't work the same way that you want, make sure you add a segment and then remove segments that you don't need. And you can see, you can quickly fix the zigzag arrow to point the right way. And then many times, if you just need a straight line, don't try to use the zigzag, just use the straight arrows. You see, if you connect the arrows to the middle of the shape, they align nicer. Okay, so now we use the zigzag to loop back around. Okay. Either to the diamond shape, or you can attach to a line itself. It works either way. Okay. So now it looks nice. It's easy to read. Again, I dropped down the stop to pass all the other shapes, just to show or clearly make it visible where the application stops. But again, you should see the main line of execution right from start to stop. Again, save the program under some different name. Make sure the name makes some sense. So always think about what's inside the file, not why you're doing it. So this is not an assignment, but it is a flowchart that takes a number and doubles it. Okay. Again, I like to force it to be on one single page, and then you can export it. And you might want to just export it as PDF. And like I said, experiment with different file extensions. I would not use BMP, it's just the size is too large. Okay. And you can see that the PDF is very nice and professional. Later on, I mean, you can also change colors, make it even prettier, but that's not really a requirement. I hope this gives you a basic understanding how Dia works, and hope you're gonna spend some time and experiment with this great application. See you next time.